And we also have Menasseh ben Israel. Menasseh ben Israel, Hope of Israel, 1650. He wrote it in 1650. We had talks on him, articles about him, not long ago. And just to remind you that he was, at that time, he lived in the time of Oliver Cromwell. He came from Spain. He came from Spain where it's forbidden to be Jewish. Menasseh ben Israel. He came from Spain. He came from a family of Jews, of Jewish descent, who've been partly Jewish, had kept some of the laws in secret ever since 1492 when the Jews were expelled from Spain, and they were still being persecuted, and they could be killed for that. The Inquisition would torture you and do all kinds of things to you, or they were liable to do so for being Jewish. So he moved to Holland, to the Netherlands. The Netherlands had been under the rule of Spain. It was more liberal. And after Henry VIII, there was the church developed in England, and the church was also involved in politics. There was together theological matters were combined with political thinking, philosophy. And there was a quarrel, there was a struggle in England as to the rights of the king. There was a struggle in England concerning the rights of the king, the rights of the king. The king, there's a trend of thought in Europe that the king represented God. The king was absolute, had absolute authority. This was strange to English thinking, but Charles I, James I from Scotland, James VI of Scotland became Charles I of England. Sorry, James I, VI of Scotland becomes James I of England, and his son was Charles I. So they had a quarrel with the Parliament. And the Parliament wrote, and the Parliament fought against the king, and they captured him and they cut off his head. And there was a friend, and the leader of the Parliament military forces was Oliver Cromwell. And Oliver Cromwell apparently believed that the Lost End Tribes now it's been acknowledged just recently. It was always known. It was never actually acknowledged that Charles Cromwell believed that Lost End Tribes were in England. The English were part of the Lost End Tribes. And he had a friend who at times was a secretary known as John Sadler, who wrote a book about it called The Rights of the Kingdom, claiming that the rights of the common people as against the king were embedded in the Bible and that they had inherited them from the Hebrews. And in a speech in Parliament, he said that the English people were descended from 10 tribes of Israel. And John Sadler corresponded with Menasseh ben Israel in the Netherlands. Menasseh ben Israel came to the Netherlands, converted or renewed the covenant, and he had a brilliant mind. He was a great reader. He read a lot. He knew a lot, and he became an authority in his own right. He wrote a book about transmigration, the movement of the souls, the souls moving from dying and moving into other bodies. And he wrote on other matters, reincarnation. And he was known for other matters, and he also was looking for the Lost End Tribes. And he heard a rumor that the Lost End Tribes were in America. America had just been discovered. America was discovered in 1492, the same year the Jews were expelled from Spain. But it took a while. It wasn't like it is today. We have the internet and everything, where things that happened a few minutes ago. Anywhere in the world you can keep abreast of them. Then they didn't have any of that. Didn't have a radio. Didn't have newspapers. Nothing. So information traveled fast, and it was all built up based on rumors, based on hearsay, based on reports that were believed to be genuine or proved not to be. So the report had to come that the Lost End Tribes have been discovered amongst the Amerindians, the natives of South America. And people had sworn on the Bible that this was so. Someone, at least one person did so, and Menasseh ben Yisrael believed him. And it tied in with other sources that he had. So he believed that the 10 tribes were part of the children of Israel. The children of Israel, they understood, had to be in every place in the world. So he thought that they should also be in England. So he went to England. He spoke to Cromwell. He spoke to John Sadler, and they made Cromwell try to get a ruling passed that would allow the Jews back into England, but there were problems, complications. Due to the lawyers came across a point of interest that there was really no official ban on the Jews being in England. That the Jews had once been in England and then they were expelled, that was a law passed by the king. But it didn't say expressly that they should never come back. It had been assumed that that was the intention, that was what needed to be done, but there was nothing saying so expressly. So that they could come back, and they did start to come back. They'd already been coming back, but unofficially. There were a few houses in London and so on. An advisor to Elizabeth was a lady, confidant, was also a Jewish girl. She was a friend of Elizabeth I and so on, but officially they weren't allowed in. So Cromwell said that they should come back. They're better off not having any law about it. Because according to any laws, liable to say that and come back on this and that condition, as was the state of temperament of people in those times, and it would just interfere with everything. So they can come back and there'll be no regulations about them. They could do what they liked, or not do what they like within the laws, the accepted norms of everyone else. So that was, and Cromwell also gave Menasseh ben Uziel a pension for the rest of his life, a relatively generous pension for those times. And Menasseh ben Uziel went back to the Netherlands. He died shortly afterwards. And he wrote a book. We have it here. He wrote a book, The Hope of Israel. And he describes how he came to believe what he did, that the lost in tribes amongst Amerindians. He had apparently received a false report. But he also quoted from the Bible. And he gave biblical quotes that in his mind show the lost in tribes will return from the Americas. At that time, there was no America. There were very few white men in America on the coast, this was before the American Revolution. But he understood that from the Bible that the lost in tribes would return from America. And he gave biblical sources proving it. We have an article about quoting this biblical source. The source he quotes, just incidentally, it's worth knowing, remembering, he quoted Hosea 11, verse 10 and 11. He says, they shall walk after the Lord, he will roar like a lion when he roars, and his son shall come trembling from the west. Yep. It's sometimes translated as sea, because in sea the same word is used for both sea and west. Be emphasized that it means west. So the lost in tribes will come from the west. And it also says they shall come trembling like a bird from Egypt, like a dove from the land of Assyria, said like a dove. And I'll let them dwell in their houses, says the Lord. Also you have Isaiah 60, who are these who fly like a cloud, like doves to their roots? Surely the isle shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first. The ships of Tarshish, according to tradition, mean ships flying the Atlantic Ocean, to bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them, the name of the Lord thy God and the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you. So here we see two important points. The lost in tribes will return from the west. They will return from the ships of Tarshish, ships flying the Atlantic Ocean. And here, in this source, along with other sources, says that in his opinion, shows that it refers to America. It can refer to America, and it is important for the future. These verses are talking about the end times. They're not talking about the times of Menasseh ben Uziel, or about our times even. They're talking about the future. So the lost in tribes will come back by the west. They'll come back by ship, and also they will fly back. Now we have aeroplanes. It's obviously, if they return, they're going to come by plane, or at least a good portion of them. But until our times, it was important, it was not pertinent. It's also an indication that we may be getting very close to the end times. Has to be, according to take this literally, has to be at a time when it's possible to fly back from wherever we are, and now we can. And 100 years ago we couldn't. So we're getting there, and this has been prophesied, says quite expressly. Like a bird from Egypt, like fly like a cloud, like doves to their roots, like straight in a straight line. So that is a point worth noting, and it's one of the points he notes, even though he didn't know what a plane was, but it's one of the points he notes. And he also notes that the 10 tribes will be led at the beginning by Mashiach ben Yosef. He quotes sources. And he says the lost 10 tribes were in America and they will return from America. He identified with the Amerindians, but that was a mistake on his part. But apart from that, he was correct. The lost 10 tribes will return from America, from North America. And just as he relied on reports that some people had found the lost 10 tribes, so we rely on historical documents, historical sources that show that the people, descendants of Israel, came to Western Europe, and they populated North America. So the two sources, so we can use those sources to apply them, to take the same conclusion as he did, from the sources he took, but apply our own conclusions because we know more than he did on that point, on that particular point.